Oh my gosh, this phylogeny is almost finished flowering. Oh, hi, welcome back to My Life with Plants. I'm Newman. This time I got a mic to make the job better, where you can at least hear my voice clearly. Anyway, I'm looking at the phylogenies, and you can see here that it is nearly finished flowering, and what seems to signify the end of Phylogeny intermedia's flowering season is the beginning of spring, and it starts to heat up. So we've had a few days where it's reached 20 degrees, and that tends to make this plant lose its blooms, or they start to fall off. So we've been having a few cooler days, and that's managed to keep these blooms on it. But it's time to do some little bit of maintenance on it. So what I have to do is I'm going to cut off these old flower spikes, and I'm going to fertilize, because they need some fertilizing. So I'm just going to get on with that, and I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, that's a better angle. And here we go. This is just all-purpose 888 basic sorry, slow release fertilizer. But also I have the liquid fertilizer too. Always before and after flowering, I'm going to fertilize orchids, because if I don't, the new growth just won't come to anything, or it won't grow properly. It'll be stunted and small and everything like that you don't want. So you got to fertilize. And the bigger the plant is, the harder it is to actually reach in there. Okay, so that'll do for the next probably month. I notice that this fertilizer gets used up pretty quickly. And this plant is going to get a water. But as you can see here, that you will notice that some phylogenies like this, as you look inside there, you'll notice that it looks like it doesn't need a water because it's still moist. But this is a big drinker. You have no fear of watering Phylogeny intermedia or Phylogenies. There's another one that it's hybridized with. The name is not coming to me for some reason. But Cristata, that's it. Now Cristata is another one that's a big drinker. And they just start to approach dryness, and what I mean is that it's still a little moist. It's time to water it again. And I've tried to pick a shallow bowl here to grow it in, and it's in sphagnum moss, and this will be going outdoors for the summer in a very, very shaded position with a lot of airflow. So the air is just constantly moving, and it's cool, very, very cool position. So one other thing that a lot of growers point out, or YouTubers, is that you get concertina leaves, and that's nothing to worry about. You can see it on the margin here. That's just the plant is underwatered, even though it appears that it's moist and everything. It's sensitive to low humidity, so in here it's kind of not its ideal amount of humidity that it likes, and it gets the concertina leaves. But this time it's just not as much as it used to be because I'm getting good at growing this plant. Another thing is that it'll try to creep out of the pot. As you can see here, it's on its way trying to creep out. Now, instead of repotting the whole orchid and upsetting it in the root system, which is quite sensitive, instead of repotting it, you just cut off 3 bulbs and then plant that on. At least with this plant, it'll try to grow from another position, maybe through here, and continue, but you just don't want to repot your orchids. They don't like it, even if they're all root bound and everything like that. Okay, I'm going to give this a water and I'll be back in a sec to update you with some really surprising results. So stay tuned. All right, while we're at it, and Sologeny has just had its water, and it did. If I had watered any other orchid like that, it would be rotting. So that's one subject I'm going to get on with you. This is the dechlorinizer. A couple of drops of that. You know what? You're never going to know if anything works unless you give it a try. A couple of drops of this fertilizer that actually has magnesium, calcium, and those missing trace elements that you don't get with a lot of fertilizers, because I don't use CalMag, but that is equivalent to CalMag. Shake, shake, shake. As I've shown in my other videos, I actually do flush my plants out. I don't do it all the time. I do it when I notice that the crystals or the salt buildup left over. Yeah, okay, let's go. I'm going to start blabbing and then go off the subject. Okay, what I wanted to show you is what's been going on with the mountains. So here we have this Encyclia polybourbon alba, or am I mixing up two names here? Encyclia, or there's another name for it, and I'll put it on the screen. It's kind of Encyclia. And they're going out of focus here. Here we are. You can see that those roots are growing out of the moss and attaching onto this wood. This piece of wood is for actually stag beetles. For homing stag beetles. I just bought them for cheap. Used it as a mount. Okay, this orchid gets sprayed every day. Next to it, this is the Dyneema polybourbon mounted. Been mounted on here for about a year now. Those roots are reaching out onto the mount. They have nice healthy bulbs. Nice healthy pseudo bulbs that are growing out new pseudo bulbs. It's creeping rhizomatous orchid. That means it's just going to take over this mount at some point. Behind it is Fimbriata. I'm going to say its name before I forget it. This is a Sologeny. Umbriata. You can see that it's starting to produce new pseudo bulbs. These are just little pieces that I bought. And then over here too, we might be able to see some new growth, or maybe not. It's definitely in there. This is mounted on a piece of, I think this is from the maple tree. I just spotted another one. You can see it right there. Yep. This is also a mount that gets watered every day. So because they are wintering here, I've made this setup, right? But I didn't know how it would go. What I've been figuring out is that I can put this thing together better so that I don't have to constantly take the orchids down. But I do have drip trays down the bottom, right? There's a little debris in there that would be from the slaters that crawled off the tree and tried to make a home in my orchids, but eventually they all fell off. So my setup here, what I'm going to do next time is I'm going to put a plastic sheet that's going to go down from the back there down and then along, and then the trays will sit on top of it so that I can just water whenever I want with the misting bottle. Just go along like this. So in that way, it doesn't take me very long. This is one thing that I've been noticing with mounting, is that you can't beat Mother Nature. For some reason I can't get that down. Okay, got trapped in there. Okay, this is a Orbiphyllum laciochilum. So we'll just go to the label there. Laciochilum. Now this one was suffering because I had it in a pot, growing in a pot of sphagnum moss. And even though I half filled it with styrofoam and I didn't have that much moss in there, it still didn't like it at all. And you see the shriveled bulbs are what is left of its struggle for life after I mounted it, and it's eventually used up all that energy, which was lucky for me that those bulbs didn't die. But you can see that these new ones are healthy and growing. And once again, it's put on a mount. And if you're struggling to water your mounts, you've got to set up something like this. This white trellis looking material here is just kitchen racks that are very, very cheap to buy. And you just zip tie them onto a cheap greenhouse. It has a polythene that goes over the top, so you can, and then you can roll up some mesh that's actually used for the bottom of pots. You cut them and you put them in the bottom of pots to stop the soil falling out the bottom. And you can put that and roll it up like that to hang little miniature orchids. Because you notice that I don't have a lot of miniatures here because of the watering problem. So we got to set this up better next year, so when they all come in, they can be watered more constantly, and water won't escape out or go on the walls or anything like that. And if you want to check out Orchids by Brian, then you'll have a complete successful setup that's right in front of your eyes. I'll put his link up here on the screen. But for me, this is just a makeshift, so I'm not going to put grow lights. I just have them by a bright window, unless I move them to a dark area where I don't have a window or have to use grow lights. Yeah, this is another one that gets watered every day, and it has 1, 2, 3. This thing is coming to life now. Dendrobium linguiforme, or Dockrilla. It's got those longitudinal markings that go down the leaves. They're very succulent. They could be mistaken for a succulent if you didn't know what it was. You would think this is a succulent because it's very, very thick. And that's why they've been classified, because they just have so many unique differences within the structure and even probably in the flowers too. Native to Australia, and if you do live in Queensland, they do have a dry season, but they have this sporadic rainfall. It can just suddenly rain at any time during the winter, which is a tropical winter. So you can still walk around with shorts and a t-shirt on. It's about 20 degrees during the day, but it can have on and off sporadic rains. So these plants are just getting constantly soaked. So they get sporadic rain on them. And then they go to the monsoon season. They'll have a lot more rain. So those areas are not dry completely. Rain falls. Okay, so this one is Danema polybourbon. And you can see that this one is still growing in a pot because what I did is I got a bit worried having it potted, like I see everybody else having theirs potted up, and that's why I took this piece off to mount it, because I thought it would rot and die. It got very, very hot on the balcony, even though I had up 80% shade. It was not enough for it, and it needs to go down into the garden in a shaded area, away from any direct sun. Direct sun, okay, let's get down to the bottom of that. If you live in tropical countries like I am in Japan, direct sun is very, very harsh, very hot, 35 degrees or over. But if you're living in a cooler climate, your direct sun could be about the maximum of 25 degrees. It is nothing compared to direct sun in another country. So these tropical plants grow right out of any sun at all in, as you know, in tropical jungles where it's well shaded. It cannot handle direct sun. On the contrary, if we have a look at these mounts have been doing, these are cattleyas. You can see that this one is starting to green up again because the weather is starting to warm. And I was looking in there between these pumice stones. I caught a glimpse of a root that's a bit overcast today, so it's hard to see. But I can't spot it. I think it's right in there, actually. There's a gap there with this green root growing, so you can see there that this is pumice chunks that are inside a net bag so that they don't all dissipate and fall. And it's in a basket, no growing media, just that to hold or retain some moisture. And I'm pretty sure this is something that's hybridized with Walkeriana because I haven't had any leaf loss at all. So it's got to have it somewhere, and it's hybridizing. The problem is with these hybrid Cattleyas is, what rules am I going to follow? Is this a Cattleya that's bred with one that comes from high humidity and a lot of rainfall, like up in the mountains of Colombia, or is it on the dry plains of Brazil? I don't know. So it's all trial and error. But what I've done is I've mounted Cattleyas because they detest, absolutely hate to be in a pot. And not just because I'm just following what somebody else has told me. I've had them in pots and they've rotted countless times. But I know for sure that when you mount them, they do much better and you don't have any rot issues. This one is, I got this in the winter. It's lost 2 pseudo bulbs, but the remaining parts are fine. They're retaining their leaves. This may scare you and make you want to move it to a pot, but it'll die in there for sure. And it's starting to produce roots, you can see there. However, it's a bit slower, and I have no idea what it needs because it's a hybrid, and hybrids are confusing. You don't know how to treat them. But we are just going to keep going with the watering. Just like the orchid you saw there, I use the spray bottle. And I give it a good soak every day. On warmer days, I'll do it twice. That means they dry straight out pretty quick. Okay, I'm going to reach up and grab this. See, my setup is not practical, so I want to have these actually hung up in there so I can spray everything together and of course move it to higher light. It's produced 2 buds. This mini Cattleya, it is retaining all its leaves. It hasn't dropped any, which is fantastic. And there's some root action going on. It is actually, I saw a root that is trying to attach to the mount. So all of these ones that are dangling down is what was remaining of the cutting when I bought it. So I just leave those on so they can drink, get nutrients. And the new roots, it's amazing how you can't find something. Oh, there it is. Okay. You can see there, right there, if I can stop wobbling because I'm trying to do everything at the same time. You can see that root there. Looks like a grub or something. It's rooted onto the mount, so that's what you want. And yes, it hasn't lost its leaves. They have wrinkled. That may make you panic and think, I'm going to stick it in a pot. But I am 100% certain from, from my experience that it's going to stay on the mount. That is how you grow those. And same with your Vandas. I don't have giant Vandas. Where would I hang them? Being a cooler climate in the winter here, we get frosts and permafrosts. So I have to bring them inside. But this is a miniature. It's hybridized with the Japanese falcata and another one from Vietnam. I'm pretty sure, could be. But it has light green flowers and it has a little sphagnum moss to keep a little humidity around the roots. These roots just dangle like a vanda does. It's called green light if you're interested in that. And this one here has a long name. And it came mounted like this. You've seen this many times. This is nice and healthy now. Unfortunately, we have a look at Vanda, Lion Star, Ducks, crossed with Falcata, Sagaric Gold. There's beautiful orange miniature Vanda flowers. Unfortunately, it doesn't take after Vanda Falcata, which is what anyone would have hoped for. So it is still tender to the cold, which is every now and then you will see little blackened parts. That was 2 years ago when it got some damage. The previous owner told me, but everything else that is growing back is nice and healthy. It's got a bag there with slow release fertilizer in it, and it was stuck on this basket, so I can root onto it with a little sphagnum. She had it sitting flat. I've hung it, however. She had it sitting flat underneath a pine, right up off the ground. It was a very airy position. Yes, on the contrary, I have one that's in a pot. I didn't grow it in there, I've left it. I do have my eye on it. It's finished its flowering for the year. It could flower again. Don't know. Usually it just flowers once. We have a couple of scary fungus gnats. They got caught and they look like females, so they are done for. So these sticky traps work. And it's got a nice root system. It's actually a little larger than green light. So Falcata crossed with another Vanda, and it is a little tender to the cold, so it's unlike one of its parents, Falcata. And it's got a nice root system going on here. It's brought outdoors for the summer, doesn't mind the heat at all. I can take the heat. It's in sphagnum moss in a reasonably small terracotta pot, so I don't overwater it. But you can spray it, and flowers once a year. The flowers are really fragrant, light blue, very nice one, dainty flowers. Okay, something else that has proven itself time and time again that it is a cooler grower, and that's Maxillaria tenuifolia. I was watching a channel and they had it. They said they have it right out in the sun there. It needs lots of super bright, almost direct sun. And that orchid was pretty shriveled, and I just don't think it looks right because when I check it, photos of it in habitat, it is not all shriveled like that. It has plump bulbs, and it's always growing in pretty dense shade. So there's a lot of canopy over the top of it, so that the bulbs should look plump like that. And when they don't, guess what? Doesn't grow at all, and doesn't like a lot of heat like you would give to the Vandas and the Cattleyas. So you can see here that during the winter time with the nice and cool conditions in here, like a coleogeny, it grows all of this. All of these new bulbs grow. And this one will be going in shady position downstairs, away from any direct sun, a lot of airflow, and keep it moist. And also another grower I know has hers moist all through the summer, and hers are magnificent and bloom like crazy. So that is Maxillaria. There's no mistake. But this one likes cooler, doesn't care for heat. Okay, down here, this is tenuifolia. No, sorry, variabilis, and it's looking much better these days. It's plenty of water, and it'll be going in the shaded area. All right, so I've tried it for 3 years, putting it back out to the balcony where it gets hot like a cattleya does, and it sets it back, and I've nearly lost the thing. It likes different conditions for sure. Down the bottom here, you can see a flower spike coming along on Epicattleya Kyoguchi Happy Field. I don't like this one in the pot. Still feels like it hasn't rooted in there. So I am at the point now, I don't want to disturb its new flower on the way, but I'm almost at the point where I'm just going to take it out and mount it. It's not doing any good in a pot, doesn't want to be in there. Right, this is one that I mounted and I saved it from Doom. I'm going to try to hang it up here so I can look at it. You can catch some light on it really good underneath this lamp. Flower spike, number 1. Number 2. Can we see any more? Number 3. This has got some sphagnum moss mounted on cork, and it is the Totes bicolor. Very readily available. It's got these long vesicular on duplicate that this leaf is actually folded over on itself. They're kind of like pine needles. They're quite thick and juicy, but don't let that mistaken you for something that needs cattleya conditions. This thing hates it. It likes constant moisture. It likes a good spray. However, when we're in the midst of winter here and we get down to 10 degrees inside this room, and outdoors is minus temperatures, I let it dry out between waterings. Now that it's into the beginning of spring and it's a little warmer, so it's about 15 to 18 degrees inside here, give it a spray once a day, and if it needs it, twice. And this is a happy orchid now, and it was in a pot, nearly died. I noticed it had new growth coming away, and when I pulled on it, it came out. And it was just, no, I'm not going to take any more chances, and I mounted it. This one will be hanging back under the trees during the very soon, probably another week from now, it'll be going back outdoors. It's looking great. It has those nice flower spikes. This is in Epicattleya Renee Marks, and it has a nice flower spike. This one is all right in a pot. It's doing fine. Another one you can grow in pots is Lycust. As long as it's terracotta. Over here is my big, massive Cattleya. One of the ones that I actually have in a pot that's very chunky bark with pumice. And that pot is very shallow. This one doesn't mind being in a pot. It's one of those exceptions in the Cattleya family. This one is a Laleo. What do you call it? Laleo Cattleya Blue Heaven, and this one is a potted orchid that doesn't mind extra moisture compared to other Cattleyas. It does all right in a pot, and there's not many of those, believe me. This is one that I want to get out of this pot, and it's a Cattleya ericolor. It's made me a little bit worried about it. It's its newest bulb. I haven't seen any flower spikes develop yet. It seems to like the moisture, a lot more moisture than the other Cattleyas from my experience so far. It's behaving a little bit more like this Maxillaria here than a Cattleya, maybe because of where it comes from in Ecuador. It's a pretty moist place, right? It's a lot of rainfall, so there's no real dry season at all there. It's just non-stop rain, sunny, tropical weather. So this one will remain in here. If it shows any signs of losing its roots or getting unhealthy, it will be mounted the next time around when I do buy one. But for now, this is in sphagnum moss. It will not be going on the balcony. It seems to have rejected that high heat. You can see here, even if it just gets a little sun that penetrates that 80% shea cloth, it gets stress, too much stress, it sets it back. I was lucky to have this grow, so it'll be going into the garden in an area that I have that doesn't get direct sun at all, and it's very breezy and cool, and there's ferns growing up the side there, and the rain won't be able to reach it, so that'll be an ideal position. Okay, next is Cattleya beringiana. You can see the tag there. This is its newest growth. This one has an unreal root system that comes out of it, so that lets you know I want water, and it gets it. Puts it into this growth here. Late summer to very late summer, it pushes out its flower spike. Magnificent blooms, unfortunately no fragrance. It has this peculiar kink to the tip of the long pseudo bulbs, which is normal for it. It'll kind of just come out on an angle there, and that's where it flowers from. So bifoliate, as a lot of people say, bifoliates are sensitive to repotting at all. Make sure that this is beyond repotting right now, but when it just starts to push out its new cane or spike and the roots just start to grow, it's time to repot it. When I do, I'm not going to take it out of the pot at all. I'm just going to sit it inside a slightly bigger one. And this one will be going back out on the balcony because it doesn't mind the heat. So wherever it does come from in its native area, and I do believe that's Belize or somewhere like that, grows on cliffs and rocky outcrops. And I think it does get a lot of more heat and possibly sunshine than a lot of the Cattleyas do. Of course, there's a lot more out there. I just don't have them. especially those ones that grow close to the coastline of Brazil. Those ones get a lot of sun. And next up over here, and it's still in flower. We'll spin this around, let you have a look. We'll move you so that we can see better. Just hang this up. Yes, so definitely today's video is all about how to set up your winter space so that you're saving time, not having to lift all these plants out to water them. This flower's still there, magnificent yellow. Cattleya, mini Cattleya hybrid with who knows how many. Does get a little shriveled over the winter. It's normal for it. I water it every now and then. So now that it's looking pretty shriveled, it's up for a water. And I'll let it dry out again. This one will be going back on the balcony. Although I did show, it's got a plant grabbing me there. It did show some signs of stress a little. So it's kind of sometimes pushed to its limits. But all those Dendrobium nobiles on the balcony will be moving out into the garden, and it'll make space for this larger Cattleya. It does need some water. It's pretty shriveled there. Look at those canes. They need a good drink. Next up to have a little look-see is this one again. Cattleya Lindy, doing much better. This one won't be going on the balcony. Does not like the other conditions that the other Cattleyas get. Likes to be cooler, so it'll be going into the shady part of the garden. I'll give it a hanger, a wire hanger, so it can hang underneath the trees. And we'll keep an eye on that. If it shows signs of stress being in a pot, it will be mounted. This one will be definitely going to the balcony where it's hot. This is different area, Terreniano or something like that. I'll put its name on the screen, and I will practice repeating it 20 times so I won't forget it. Often called the banana orchid. Grows central Brazil on rocky outcrops, sparsely wooded. So if you actually approach that area it's growing in, you would really not consider it an area where you would find anything that's related to an orchid. But that particular area is very flat, and it has a pretty dry semi-desert conditions, so that during the winter it's quite hot still. Doesn't really get that much cooler, but it gets very dry, very, very dry. These plants can look like they're on the brink of complete decimation. They're so shriveled, and even they do carry a lot of dead back bulbs that have actually gone dry and rotted. And it makes you wonder just how they survive, but that's their native habitat. They're very hard to spot because of the way they grow on the rocks, and they're shriveled and they just don't really resemble anything. You would mistake them as just debris stuck in between shallow boulders. But they do grow there, and they get 3 to 4 months or even longer of dry weather. And I'm pretty sure at their altitude during the night there are some maybe possibly fog or high humidity that just gives them enough water to get through. Because if it was 100% dry, like that it's presumed to be, they wouldn't survive at all. They need that little moisture. So I do spray it every now and then. It starts to get pretty shriveled, I will spray it but not soak it. And this is how it likes to grow. And its latest bulb actually is quite big. This thing is still growing, which is this one. And from there it'll have a flower spike right down on the bottom of the bulb. Looking forward to that. Yeah, interesting orchid, that one. It survived with flying colors. I was amazed that Biffineria was even more tolerant of the heat than these cattleyas are. A lot of these cattleyas, I mean, like this one, it's not uncommon for it to get one or two rotted bulbs from its stress from the heat. But that's not deterred one bit at all. Well, okay, we've come to the end of this video, and I've talked a lot, and thanks for coming along. And I hope that this helped you out with your orchid journey a little bit. Next up on the menu for me would be mounting this Epicattleya. Possibly I'm going to do some other mounts with some other orchids because they just don't belong in pots. This one here will be fine in a pot. I'm thinking of taking out that, although it's been doing fine. Yeah. And that's it for this time. Sorry I don't have more varieties of orchids to make it even more interesting, but I don't tend to buy too many because then my attention to detail is dissipated within the vast and complicated amount of orchids around me. And like anybody else, I will be subject to neglect. I'm starting to neglect them because I'm too overwhelmed with too many plants to look after, and I've got to try plants, see how they go before I get enough experience and I build it up. I'm able to venture out. But the most important thing is how you set up your orchid area. If you are planning on bringing them in, like I have to here, and you bring them out during the summer, nature takes care of them basically out there, as long as they're set in the right position. But when they have to come in, you got to set up that area. That saves you a lot of work. So my goal for next year is to make sure that they are set up where I can just spray them. And a lot of them are on mounts, like they need to be. They are required to be. And they grow naturally like that. But before we go, you can see down here some lovely roots growing on this oh, these are my two Brassovelas. Yeah, that one is little stars, and the other one that's hard to get to with the camera. I can pop it in there. This one's Nodosa, and I'm going to pop that out and have a look in it because I'm trying to spy new roots. So it was mounted and everything, and didn't really catch any glimpse of roots going onto the mount during the summer. So two things happened are going on. It's a little too hot or not quite enough light. It might be a little bit dark where I hung it up on that tree. So right on a tree stump. Not a tree stump, the trunk of a conifer tree. It was in bright shade. This one was put in an area where it had a little bit more light, and this one seems to have a better root system, and it's starting to attach to the mount. Nodosa needs to do that. Yeah. And being on a mount, I do water it every day when temperatures are mild. When it's freezing cold outside, however, I'll skip that day. Everything is so much easier on a mount, and I tell you what, better roots. Number one, the roots are better. Number two, you can water it every day. Number three, the roots dry out like they're supposed to, so that you get a maximum amount of airflow. Number four, your worries are taken away. All your worries about, is my orchid is it going to rot? I'm worried. I want to look inside it. And you start digging and trying to pull it out of the pot. All of those things are gone. All of those problems disappear when you put them on a mount. Okay, so if that's not enough to convince you, and of course, if you have something that requires just that more moisture, which is like a collagen, or this Denema polybourbon, or even this epidendrum here, then by all means put some sphagnum moss on. Unless it's freezing cold and you're going below zero and you got frost and everything like that, I advise that you spray these things. Put a little mini heater in your room. Down here, the little cheap fan heater, 300 watt, and it's just enough to take the chill out of the air being indoors here. And if you don't have enough light, by all means get some grow lights, and they don't have to be the expensive ones. You can even have grow lights that are 8 watt. I mean, think about that. I got Phalaenopsis going under 8 watt, little tiny 8 watt fish tank grow lights that you sit on top of a fish tank. They look after the plants that grow in the water, the freshwater plants. Also look after the fish too, give them calcium and the vitamins from the natural light, and they even grow well underneath that. So your best bet is to check around and get that information. But by all means, you don't need the very powerful, strong wattage LED lights. They could be just too much for them. And if you need more help with that, I'll put the link back on the screen, Orchids by Brian. Pretty sure he'll help you out with the ideal grow lights and the wattage, foot candles, and all of that information for you, because he's growing a lot of cattleyas, and then he's growing everything that's right down into those high altitude misty rainforest Colombian varieties like your Pleurothallus and your Restrepias. He's got those too, and they look absolutely fantastic, beautiful, healthy things. Yep, so after you've watched me, why don't you go over to his channel and have a good look too. And he loves comments and he likes questions, so if you have anything, let him know. He's happy to help out, I'm pretty sure. I didn't ask him, but I'm pretty sure he's a real helpful, nice guy who loves orchids. He loves to help too. Look at those buds. They look really nice, don't they? Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye.